Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're talking to a 5-time Masters champion from Canada who earned her pro card at North Americans in August of 2019. She was born in Alberta, raised in Ontario, and now lives in British Columbia doing treat reviews of food that aren't in Canada and, of course, running her real estate business, connecting buyers with agents near them. Welcome to the show, Jody Andrews. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I am awesome. I'm super excited to be on here. I listen to your podcast all the time.
That's so awesome. I love when people come on and say that because it just makes me feel like, okay, good. Like, well, at least you know what's coming.
I was on the Stairmaster listening to your one from 2 weeks ago. Last time you messaged me, I was actually on the Stairmaster listening. So that was so funny.
That's so crazy. I love it. So, of course, I'm going to ask you a question, ask everyone, but I do want you to know, like, I'm also really looking forward to everything we've got. And to those of you listening, like, the things we're going to cover today are going to be super relatable, and I know it's going to hit home for a lot of you. So before we get into that, what is something you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
It's so funny because I hear some of your girls like talking about how important it is to be professional and get in your zone and, not let outside influences, get in your head kind of thing. But for me, what's, on top of, getting in my zone and practicing and visualizing myself out on the stage, which I do pretty much like the day before, right up until I get on the stage. But right before I go on stage, right from the first show that I ever did, I found myself just kind of bopping to the music. So every time I do a show, I actually catch myself just kind of dancing around backstage and getting, in a positive headspace so that I'm just having fun when I'm out there smiling. And I think the judges really see that when you're having a great time and really are happy to be there.
Totally. I think that's awesome. And now you have experience with the leagues in Canada, and I think it'd be great to really break this down for listeners who
Mm.
maybe aren't sure how this works. I know for me personally, I kind of get it, but not to the extent that I'd like to. So do you mind explaining like the federation split that happened and how Canadian athletes can become pros and how you were able to compete in the US and get your pro card too, like all of that?
For sure. I'm definitely not an expert in this category, but to my understanding, so what happened back a few years ago, we had in British Columbia the BC ABBA, which is the BC Amateur Bodybuilding Association, and then each province had their own. So Alberta has the ABBA, and so on and so on. So each province had a federation which rolled up under the CBBF, which is the Canadian Bodybuilding Federation.
Okay.
And so we would do, there were 3 levels, so 3 tiers. We would do a regional show, usually in our province, and then that qualified us for provincials. And then if you qualified at provincials, that would take you to nationals, and nationals is where you get your pro card. So there were like 3 tiers that you had to hurdle before you got your pro card. And then when the federation split, we got the Canadian Physique Alliance. So there's now the CBBF and the CPA. And so I'm with the Canadian Physique Alliance, and my coach only trains girls in the CPA. And now there's only 2 levels, so you have to qualify at a pro qualifier in order to get your, hold on a sec, no, I'm doing that wrong. So you have to qualify at a show, the first level show, before you do the pro qualifier, and at the pro qualifier is where you get your pro card.
And you got to place first, right?
Yeah, for the pro cards, you have to get the first overall.
That's so crazy.
And then I think there's 3 shows that Canadians are eligible to do in the States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, North Americans is the one that I did in Pittsburgh. So that one Canadians are eligible to participate in as well.
That's awesome. And so obviously this is something that you've gotten to like go through. You've done a few shows, you've competed for a few years. You actually did 4 shows this past year, and then you came to North Americans and you won. So you had put on muscle very easily, and then you switched coaches because you had gotten feedback about that. What do you think attributed to you finally getting your pro card, even after those 4 shows you did this past year?
Um, yeah, I've always been athletic, so I did a lot of sports when I was younger, so I did tend to put on muscle really easily. And being a little bit older, I'm not, 19 or 20 anymore.
Which,
I've
by
got
the way,
like,
you look like you're 19 or 20.
thank-
I like could not believe, I kept rereading Masters, like, I feel like I'm gonna get this wrong.
I just had a birthday a week ago too, so I'm not digging that at
Happy
all.
birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, so my muscle maturity was definitely there. So I was putting on muscle really easily. And my old coach was really big on building metabolism. So I got a really, really good foundation from them. So trying to get my calories as high as possible, trying to um, get my cardio as low as possible. So I had a really good foundation. I got first in masters in my first show, first in masters in my second show, first in masters in my third show. Yeah, the first 3 that I did with my coach, I got first place, which was awesome. But I was slipping in the open category, so I went from second to third to fifth, and it was just, I think, because I was just lifting as heavy as I possibly could. It was all on sort of, lift heavy, have good form, but I was really bulking. Like I was starting to build outwards. My midsection was getting blocky. It just wasn't as feminine as I would have liked. And so just kind of on a whim, I decided to join Team Atlas. And just he's an expert now in bikini, so definitely knows his stuff, him and Jennifer and Angeline. And they just got me like down to the bikini look. They're really in there with the judges, know what the judges are looking for, got lots of feedback on what they want, and just tweaked me a little bit throughout each show, just till we got exactly that fine tuning done to what the judges were looking for. So the first one, it was a great look. The second one got a little bit better. Third one got a little bit better. And the fourth one, we just nailed it.
That's awesome. And like you just mentioned, being on Team Atlas means you get to pose with Angeline, and of course Jennifer as well. And I've heard Angeline can be quite the drill sergeant, and I know she's exclusive to Team Atlas, but I've always been curious, like, why do people say this about her? What did she tweak and change specifically for you? Like, give us the inside scoop.
I think before I joined the team, that was probably my weakest thing was posing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had a few sessions with a few different girls in Vancouver who gave me some great input and great feedback on what to do. But I just never really felt super comfortable up there. I always, had fun and looked like I knew what I was doing. But looking back on the videos, good Lord, they were terrible. So Angeline has like got so much experience and she's so detail oriented. She's just amazing. And I I was like, I'm so OCD, like I'm just so detail oriented and nitpicky that I just stressed myself out so much trying to make sure I got everything right and every single detail. I was making notes. I had like little, cheat sheets and notes all over the place on what to do. And there were just so many details that I didn't know what the heck I was doing at first. So it was a bit overwhelming for sure, but it's just because you're learning so much. And then once you start practicing and getting everything sort of in your head, there's less to remember and more of it is just it comes naturally. So she's not that scary, but she's definitely good at what she does.
And now you get to create a pro routine with her.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
That's awesome. And what are your plans now for the IFBB Pro League? Like, what are you guys thinking about?
I don't think we've really chatted about it yet. I'm just right now kind of trying to reverse diet myself out. I want to, gain as much muscle as I can and still stay fairly lean in the off season. So I think we're going to probably talk about it closer to the end of the year. I'm thinking maybe Portland, but haven't decided yet.
Nice.
Going back to Pittsburgh again. Pittsburgh was really fun too.
That would be awesome. Is it difficult to live outside the US and then compete in pro shows? Like, do you have to travel a lot and how do you manage that?
I actually, before I got my pro card, I was super excited about traveling to the States. I wanted to do like all these shows that were down there, but every time I emailed over, I was told, oh, Canadians aren't eligible. So I'm excited now that the sort of the world has opened up for me and I can go to lots of different places because a lot of the girls that we've got like a group of girls that are on Team Atlas and we just obsess over going on treats trips after shows.
I've seen these little grocery hauls. You guys, I was like, oh my gosh, she's for real.
We've got a group chat now, and then whenever one of us goes somewhere, we're like, guess where I am? We take a picture at like Walmart.
That is so cute. Oh my, I want to talk to you about that too, because like you literally do treat reviews for treats that
Yeah.
are not in Canada. And I mean, we can look at this a few different ways. Like one, we can be like, oh my gosh, why is she so like treat obsessed? But on the other hand, it's pretty cool that you actually are showing girls that they can have treats.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one of the things that's important to know is that post show our relationship with food can change, but it's important that we keep a healthy relationship with food or work towards that and get help to do so. You've been doing these treat reviews, and I'm curious if you're working them into your daily macros, meal plan, you're trying them just to try them.
Yeah.
What's your plan with that?
And I know you've got like a program that you do to help girls coming out of shows to get a
Yes.
good relationship with food. So that is awesome. I love that.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you.
So yeah, I think I didn't travel a lot growing up. I never really gone to the States before, so I didn't know that all this stuff existed. So when we went down, every time I go down to the States, like even when I lived near the border in Vancouver, I would go down to like Bellingham or Seattle, and I'd just see gum that we didn't have, and I was so fascinated with it. I don't know
You're like
why.
peering over the line, like, oh my gosh.
So now when I go down, we just kind of, and even when I went to Vegas to Olympia with Magnum, we were taking Ubers to like Target and stuff. And one of the girls in the car was from the States. And so she had to explain to the Uber driver, they're like, oh, where are you going on a Friday night? And she's like, they're going to Walmart.
Of course, in Vegas. Let's
Yeah.
go to Walmart, not other places in Vegas.
So I found that I got like a whole bunch of stuff and then I've still got half of it at home. Like I actually haven't eaten most of the stuff that I got. And I've got a picture on my Instagram of we filled basically the bed with stuff between the five of us of just stuff that we didn't have in Canada. But most of it, yeah, is sitting at home and I'll maybe have like a couple of bites of something. So that's what I usually do with my treats reviews is I'll just have like half an Oreo cookie.
Hmm.
Because I want to try it. I want to see what it's like. And then usually my craving is over once I have half of it. And then the rest of it I just give away. So definitely fitting it into the macros. There were, a couple of days after my show where I just kind of ate stuff and didn't really think about it too much. But for the most part, I'm trying to just make it like a once a week or once every couple of weeks treat. And lately I've been doing some that are just like mustards and water flavors too. So I am getting some low calorie ones as well.
Yeah, I think what you said is really key there, though, that you have it and like your craving goes away and you move on. And
Mhm.
that's a very, like, that's a significant sign of a healthier relationship with food than someone who goes, I can't have any of this because I'm going to end up binging on all of it or overeating it or being out of control. And a lot of the girls that I work with, I tell them, have one small thing
Mm.
every single day or every week or whatever. We end up working it out based on the individual, of course, but this is because it can take away that fear of going overboard. It actually normalizes it so that you're not like, oh my gosh, obsessing over having this Oreo. Instead, you have it and then you don't care about it so much because you haven't been restricting it. It's like, I wanted it, I tried it, it's done, I can move on, rather
Totally.
than, fixating on this like abnormal thing or this stack full of American treats in your corner. You're just like, okay, when I want it, I know I can have it.
Totally. Yeah. And I think when we're prepping, like I found more so in my first and maybe second shows, I just obsessed over what I was going to eat afterwards. And I was doing the food porn thing and like looking at, the Food Network and Instagram pictures of burgers and stuff. And I found it got a lot easier the more shows I did. I didn't really obsess that much anymore. Maybe thought about what I wanted to have after my show, but then really half the time I ended up not really having anything.
Yeah.
Like a cookie, and then that was that. But yeah, it definitely gets a lot easier when you're not thinking about it constantly.
Totally. And knowing that the only reason you're thinking about it is because you're
Yeah.
hungry, like you actually are food deprived usually in prep, like you're gonna be hungry sometimes. And there's also times where you're not gonna be hungry. Like some girls are like eating so much food going into a show that they don't care. Or like if your coach gives you maybe like a burger or gives you some sort of refeed heading into the show, you probably won't care as much about that after. At least that's what I've noticed.
True. And the food will always be there. Like it's easy to get into the headspace of, oh my gosh, I have to eat everything now because I haven't eaten it for such a long time, but it's always going to be there. You can have, a couple of nibbles of something and it'll be there next week or it'll be there next month, and the burger's still going to be, Burger King or whatever. So you don't have to eat everything all in one sitting.
But what about the limited edition Oreos? I'm just kidding.
I had some limited edition oatmeal the other day. It was terrible.
Lesson learned. It's so crazy too. Like so much of this stuff just like keeps forever.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter, but you're right. The more shows you do, it does seem to get easier. Even when you do shows like multiple shows in a year or over and over, or even what I noticed, just taking a long improvement season helped me to just
Mhm.
okay, I'm well fed, I'm taken care of, I'm making conscious choices for me. Like I was able to come off of autopilot and just see like, okay, I'm actually choosing the meals I'm eating. So I don't normally walk through Walmart and think I have to have this. I want to try this from the bakery, because that only happens when I'm in prep. I'll be like, oh, I can't wait to have this after my show. And I made a commitment like this prep. I'm like, I'm not going to say that anymore because I never end up having it. Like,
That's
it's
true.
just silly.
I did that too. Everything that I saw, I was like, I'm gonna have that after my show. I'm gonna have that after my show, and I didn't have any of it.
Right? It's so ridiculous. But yeah, anyways, it's just like because we're hungry. But
Yeah.
um, so what even inspired you to actually start doing these reviews though, like posting them as reviews?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not even really sure. I think I was watching like YouTube videos one time. There was this guy that just like sits in his car and people send him food. But I had, yeah, some of the treats and stuff. Like I would take pictures of the treats trips that we had, and I would get messages from girls saying, "Oh, that looks really good. Like, how was it? Like, can you talk about it? Can you, what was that thing like?" And so I was like, maybe I'll just post a review of one of them, and then it just kind of took off from there. And I'll get like tons of messages from people like asking me to review, this or that or whatever. And I had one that was asking me which cookies were the best of all the ones I've tried. So it's starting to really branch out now. It's fun.
Dang. I actually love watching food reviews because I'm always like, how do you know how to describe them?
Yeah. And
Like
everybody's tastes are so different too. So what I hate, somebody else might really like.
exactly. I know. I remember I have like two people who one person I became friends with, and the other one I just like love watching it, but two people I really love watching. And one of them like it's so funny, she'll say, I hate this thing, and I'm like, I actually really like that. And so then I was like, can I trust these reviews anymore? Like, how do I know? But then it also gives you ideas of things to actually try or
Yeah.
mix it up.
I try and make them sort of subjective. I'm like, oh, this pickle mustard is like super pickly. So somebody that hates pickles will be like, okay, I'm not trying that.
That actually makes sense. I like that. That's a good way to do it, because it's like, okay, if I know, like if you buy something that's like dark, like double dark chocolate,
Yeah.
like if it's only slightly chocolatey, someone who's like, oh no, I like super dark chocolate, all the chocolate, maybe wouldn't be as excited about it.
Yeah, totally.
I do that with like protein products a lot too. Like I'll see like what are people saying about them, how much does it taste like the thing it says it tastes like. It's actually very helpful.
Yeah, and texture and stuff too is like if somebody wants a crunchy one or somebody wants a soft one, like that's important to some people too. So
Yes. And so you mentioned you're now reverse dieting, trying to stay lean in your improvement season while, of course, building muscle. So how is your, I guess, reverse diet or off season different than your prep?
this will be the first one that I'm doing with Atlas. So I'm curious to see sort of how the improvement season goes with them. I don't know yet because I basically started with them in January, and we sort of started getting ready for my first competition in July, in January. So I had a super slow, gradual prep with them. So this will be my first reverse. But my last coach, I know it was very, very slow, just so, gradually increasing the calories, gradually decreasing the cardio. So I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. How are you feeling?
I'm really good right now. It's good to sort of have a little bit more, energy. This year, I found my energy didn't dip as much as it did in previous years. I think last year, I went out boating one time and I just kind of fell asleep on the boat. So
Oh my gosh.
it was relaxing and sunny out, so it was kind of sun tanning and kind of passed out, so it wasn't that bad. But yeah, definitely energy levels have been low in the past, but this year I'm finding during my prep I was pretty energetic throughout the whole thing. Always try and stay like super positive. I never want to, inconvenience anybody else, or get grumpy or hangry when around other people, because it's not their fault that I'm doing a prep. I always, have it in my head
Yes.
that, this was my choice, not their choice. So they should not have to suffer. So I always try and stay super positive. I was chatting with somebody at the gym. He's like, "Oh, you must be really, really grumpy right now." Hey, I was like, "No, actually, I'm feeling really great." Yeah, checking on me
Yes.
every day at the gym saying, "Are you still in a good mood? Like, I don't understand how you're so peppy all the time."
Yeah, I love that. Change that stereotype. Like, I always tell people, like, prep is no excuse to be an asshole, like, be that much more self-aware of just the way that you're behaving around others. Because, like you said, I really like how you said that. It's my choice, not theirs, so they shouldn't have to suffer. That's massive.
And it'll put like a bad spin on the industry if, everybody's experience with competitors is, "Oh my God, they're so cranky." The
Exactly.
whole industry is like, no, if we're positive and upbeat and like loving what we do, then it just makes more people want to join in.
So true. And you know what? I love that you are always just adding value to your audience and really going out of your way to support them or inspire them. And I just think this is awesome. And I know right now you are doing like a bit of a post show series, and this is because you're reversing out after winning your pro card. And I personally love that you're doing this. So, what types of experiences have you had post show that you think other competitors or new competitors need to be prepared for?
Hmm. The big one that I found on my very first show that I did, I threw so much sort of, I'm a little, like I say, OCD, so I kind of give 110% to everything that I do. So I threw everything into my competition. You always get all the people that are cheering you on, and "I'm so proud of you." And you get the hair and the makeup and the tan and the, sparkles and the glitter, and it's all fun. And then when you get off stage, it's very almost humbling to say, "Okay, it's over now. Like, now what?" It's almost, I don't want to compare it to like postpartum, but that's the only thing I can sort of compare it to, is you get all this, excitement leading up to something, and then it's over, and it can be really depressing for some people. And I've met a lot of people, and myself included, that kind of felt a little lost afterwards.
Yeah.
um, and so that's something I always try and talk to people. I've got a few friends that are doing their first shows, and I told them, make sure you come chat with me when you're done, because I think having hobbies and interests and something to fall back on like right away as soon as you get off stage is super important. You can have all the support and friends and stuff in the world, but if you don't have anything sort of occupy your time, occupy your headspace when you get off stage, you're going to feel super almost empty. Like, what do I do now? Like, it's over. Now what? So
Mhm.
that's one thing that I talked about on one of my first IGTV series, was just sort of the now what of post show, because it can be depressing for some people.
Yeah, it really can. And especially like as soon as you step off that stage, you're like still on a high from it. And then like Sunday, you're like celebrating with people. And then Monday, it's back to normal life, but now without that show date in mind. So it's really easy to start feeling like, oh my gosh, there isn't anything for me like this, or oh, my coach told me I need to take time off, or maybe you haven't heard from your coach yet. And so you do start to feel a little bit lost. But I like what you said. It's so important to have other goals and other hobbies. And it's also really important to have those things set up in place before you commit to a show or before you get to that, end date. So maybe even like a week or so out, you're thinking about like, okay, after my show, these are my goals, assuming that I decide to compete again. Okay, after my show, these are my goals, assuming I don't decide to compete again.
Yeah.
And just being proactive, right? Like if we're not proactive, then we're always having to be reactive. So it's important to go, okay, well, if I know I might struggle with this, how can I combat that now versus waiting till later? And I literally just launched it today, but of course, when people hear this, it's going to be later. I did this on-demand mindset coaching platform. I created it, and one of the topics is improvement season, and then going into feeling loss after a show. And I share with them a lot of the exercises that they can do to get through this. But also, it's good for people who, like I said, like do this before you get to that point. Like, don't wait to have a moment of now I'm feeling depressed. Instead, like let's be proactive in that decision. So what did you do, or did this come up for you, and what did you do to combat it yourself?
The first show I did, I think I was I was in a weird place in my life. So I was just getting out of a bad relationship. My career's always been like a main focus of mine. I've always been sort of really focused on trying to be as, um, productive as possible, have as good of a job as possible. When I was younger, that was super important to me, was having you know, a good career and making lots of money and stuff. And I think that just getting out of a bad relationship and considering moving cities, I think just kind of made me reevaluate sort of what was really important. And I started to focus more on sort of being happy internally rather than using external factors to make me happy. Since then, I've found, jobs that have made me really internally satisfied. So I'm doing real estate now, which I find really rewarding because it's, finding people their dream homes, and it's a lot of positivity and a lot of helping people, which I find really rewarding. So keeping really busy with my career, I think, has been one of the big things for me that's really helped me.
Well, it is awesome that you are doing something you are passionate about. That definitely makes a difference and can be super rewarding, like you said. You did mention, though, that you had to move and there was an unhealthy relationship and all of this kind of stuff happened. Did that impact your competing?
Um, I think that was my first show. So I was with somebody that I sort of knew wasn't really going to work out anyway, but it was kind of fun at the time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I changed jobs, I moved. So there was a lot going on all at the same time, but I find that like I'm always multitasking, always doing like 53 things at the same time. So that's probably why I'm good at prep and competing and stuff, because I like to just kind of like focus on stuff and like do careers and training and going to the gym and hanging out with my friends, all at the same time. I think I'd be bored if I wasn't doing 9,000 things. But
Same.
yeah. But I think, yeah, when I broke up with him, it was sort of, I sort of knew it was coming, so it wasn't that bad. I was just kind of like, okay, one less thing to worry about. Let's focus on myself now. And I always try and focus on self-improvement whenever I end a relationship. I don't want to ever bring baggage into a new relationship. So I spent some time to just kind of improve myself and make sure that I was in a good headspace before starting to date again. So it wasn't too bad in the first show. And then I met somebody else a little bit later who helped me through the show that I was prepping for, and was super supportive throughout it. He was really sort of on board with my competing. He dated competitors in the past. So, super supportive and cheering me on and posting on social media about how proud he was of me. That was the first show. And then the second show, not so much. The second show was kind of like, oh, this is a bit of an inconvenience for me. I was getting a lot of sort of, the keys are in the car. I can't get the doors locked. I'm like, okay, I'm about to go on stage in 5 minutes. Can you like,
Yeah.
let's try and be a little more positive here. And then the third show, he just didn't want any part of it anymore. So after the first two, he just kind of bailed on the whole thing and said, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't care really. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was tricky for sure. We were together for almost 4 years, 3.5 years. And one show that I did in Vancouver, I'm in Kelowna now, so which is about 4 hours from Vancouver. So I was traveling to Vancouver to do one of my shows, and he didn't want to come. And it was like the night before the show, and I was all stressed out because I didn't know if he was going to show up or not. So I definitely put on some like water bloat. My coach during all my preps has noticed whenever I get stressed out because I retain water, my cortisol goes up, I get water retention, and it just looked completely different. So that definitely impacted my competition. So even this year had some stress going on with the same guy. We're not together anymore now, partially because of that, just the negativity. My coach said, just eliminate that stress because you're retaining water and you're not looking good.
Yeah.
So I
It
basically told him
definitely
like,
does.
okay, stop with the negativity just for my prep, and you can, go back to it later. Cut it out for now. Like, don't talk to me. So I basically told him to, stop with the negativity for a while. And we just, that helped because I definitely lost all my water retention and stuff because of that.
Wow. So it was obvious that he was causing a lot of that stress.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I got lots of negative feedback saying, you're wasting your summer, you're pissing away your summer. Even this past summer when I got my pro card, he said, well, you basically pissed your summer away, chasing a
Wow.
stupid dream.
I don't like him. He sounds horrible, honestly. Like, I'm just gonna say it straight out. But like, I was even shocked when you messaged me saying that you asked him, like, or you told him, like, hey, I wanted to give you a heads up. I'm gonna be on this podcast. I'm gonna talk about our relationship. And he told you that we were all idiots because he wanted you to tell us about how embarrassing you were bringing food to social events. And then you told him, no, all these schools listening do that. And he said, we're idiots. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Like,
I actually
that's
asked him
crazy.
up front. I said, do you mind if I talk about this? Because I think this is really important. Something that some girls I'm sure will relate to. And I didn't want to like talk about it if he wasn't okay with it. So I asked him point blank, do you mind if I talk about this? And he said, tell them about how embarrassing you are by bringing chicken and rice to social events.
Damn. Yeah, you're
And then,
so embarrassing.
yeah. And I said, most of the people listening to this podcast have brought chicken and rice to social events. And he's like, well, tell them all that they're all idiots then.
Well, now you've told us.
Even
Oh
today,
my
he told me I can
gosh.
guarantee I won't be listening to this podcast because I think it's stupid. It's all just the same crap you've been talking about for the last 3 years. So he probably will never hear this.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's just wild to me. Like, I can't believe that in the first show it was it almost sounded like it was selfish. Like, look at my hot girlfriend. She's doing this. It's so awesome. I'm such a supportive boyfriend. And then it was like, oh my gosh, now this is continuing?
Yeah, I don't know if he just thought it was going to be like a one-time thing. I actually at one point did say, like this year when we were still together, I said, okay, I'll just do the Vancouver show, which there's no pro card in my category at that show, but because it's early enough in the summer, I'll get it out of the way and then I'll enjoy the rest of the summer with you. So I was willing to like forego trying to get a pro card for him. And then when we broke up, I said, you know what, screw it. I'm doing what I want to do. So
Give me
that's why I
that
did.
pro card. And you
Yeah. So
got
I did
it.
3 more shows and got the pro card. So I had a bunch of messages from my teammates and some girlfriends of mine being like, take that.
Hell yeah. What would you say to him, or how did you respond to him, or maybe other people who didn't approve?
I so I've talked to a couple of my girlfriends about what's been going on because there's a lot more stuff to it that's happened lately, and I always try and stay positive because again it's like I've never tried to change somebody. I never want, somebody else to be who they're not. So it's not his thing. And I totally get that. So I try and be as positive as possible. I would just message him back and say, okay, fine. Like, I hope you're doing okay, blah, blah, blah. And my girlfriends are super pissed at me because they're like, you need to tell him to go, where to go. I don't want to curse, but yeah, you need to tell him to shove it. And I was like, no, that's not going to do any good. Like, if it's not his thing, it's not his thing. We're not meant to be together, and that's that. We move on. And I've met some like awesome people since then. Like I've got great friends that totally support this, and I've met some really cool like guys as well. Like nothing, not dating yet or anything, but I've met some really cool people that are super supportive and like just cheer me on, like whatever I want to do. They're just trying to, help me be a better person, which is what I try and do to people too. I just try and help them be the best version of themselves and as happy as they possibly can be. So
I love that. It's crazy how, like, if we get mad at people for how they feel about us or how they don't support a certain thing we're doing, then that's like us forgetting that they're a separate entity. Like, they are a different person. They have their own likes and dislikes. So it's difficult to have those conversations if we're not willing to be open-minded and like hear why they feel the way they feel.
mm-hmm.
And this actually came up at my event recently. One of the girls struggled with someone always questioning her about like her eating.
Mm.
And then another girl was struggling with like people always wanting to go out to eat and then being upset if she didn't eat with them. And it's crazy how quickly our brain goes to, oh, they don't like me, they don't support me, when in
Mm.
reality, like maybe they just don't get it, or maybe they feel like you don't understand them, or they're really grieving like a part of us that maybe they wanted us to be or a way we used to be. And it can be super hard to have people who we're close or we're supposed to be closest with in our life not approve of our lifestyle. Did you have any other experiences with this?
I'm quite lucky. Like my mom was a little, nervous when I first started doing this because she's like, "Oh, I can see your rib cage." Like, "Oh my gosh, are you eating enough?" And then I showed her like my macros and stuff and what I was eating. She's like, "Oh, okay." And then she gradually got on board with it. The bringing chicken and rice to social events, like nobody ever gave me a hard time for that except for him. So, and I've asked, a few people, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from, especially girls. They're like, "I wish I could do what you did. Oh my gosh, you're killing it. Like, so proud of you. Like, how do you do it?" That kind of thing. So I only ever get positive feedback. I've never had anybody, complain or question what I do because I still go out. I still, socialize. I still have a great time. I was going boating. I was dancing. I was partying, like whatever. Like nothing had changed except occasionally I'd pull out some sweet potatoes. But who cares really? Like if that's, you know, life altering and, the world's going to crumble because I'm eating some salmon and sweet potatoes, then, there's a lot worse things in the world that I could be doing.
Yeah,
I really
exactly.
don't understand why it bothered him so much, but it really did. So I don't know if he thought that people were thinking it was weird or whatever, but nobody ever told me it was weird. And a lot of people wanted to do it too because they were wondering how I got to competing, levels and stuff like that, and they wanted to do it as well. So I don't get it. But
Yeah, you've inspired more people than you have like infuriated people.
yeah, I would think so.
The,
Yeah, you can
absolutely.
have a balance. You can party, you can go out, you can have a great time, and you can still be in prep. It's doable.
I think that's so hard for some people to wrap their heads around because they are used to maybe prepping a certain way or turning off social time. So, what would you recommend to someone who maybe has completely turned off their social time because they don't feel like they can find that balance? Like, how can they make that happen?
Yeah, I guess everybody's going to be different. So, like I said, in previous years, my energy levels were a little low, and it really does depend on who's around you. If some people don't understand, and you're low energy, and you've got to explain yourself, and why aren't you eating, then it can be definitely a lot tougher on somebody who's trying to get through prep with, a bunch of people in their ear, chirping about, how they don't agree with it or whatever. I was lucky that I had a lot of really supportive people that I could message, call, go see. There's a lot of competitors in my town as well. And then back in Vancouver, where I came from, there's a ton of people over there that are just the sweetest people ever. So they're really, really supportive. So I think just finding a good support network and a good group of people is really, really key.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the fact that you have other competitors around you too, I'm sure that that's been awesome both in
Yeah,
prep and in your improvement season.
totally. Yeah.
So,
Even if they're online, even if you can talk to some people that are going through it online,
exactly.
there's people that I've never met that are like some of my best friends right now that only talk online, but
Me too. Yeah, shout out to Melissa Kerman. Me and her have never met, but she's like one of my best friends now. And it just like just by connecting on social media or reaching out to people, or when people reach out to you, you know, like don't shut them out, like see it as an opportunity to get to know them. And that was always hard for me because I was like, I'm just like, I don't know. I've been always very like introverted in the sense of like I don't make an effort to go out or to like try
Mhm.
and make friends. Like it normally just kind of unfolds based on like where I'm at.
Mhm.
Um, but because of social media and then also because of like stepping outside my comfort zone with competing as well, like I've been able to develop relationships that turn into like really great friendships because we've been open. And then, you know, you can get on phone calls with them or go and see them. And when you meet them in person, you forget that you've never met them in person.
Yeah.
It's so
That
cool.
that actually happened to me yesterday. Somebody that was on, I've only known through social media, like messaged me as like, "Oh, hey, I'm across the gym." I was like, "What?"
Oh my
Cool.
gosh.
Or people back in Vancouver that is like I never really knew in person that I'd like go out and hang out with, and now we're like great friends.
That is so cool. That's what I love about this sport. And I mean, we can say this about anything, but this sport, it's super cool. Like when we all come together and support one another, it's a beautiful thing that can happen.
It's amazing. And some people think that, competitors are all going to be super competitive against each other and catty and backstabby. And I've never experienced that. I've only ever met amazing, amazing people, and like some of the most, sweet, supportive people ever I've met through this industry. So
Me
so lucky.
too. Yeah, we really are. I think it's cool because, like, from an NPC perspective, from a CPA perspective, from an IFBB perspective, like, we're both saying, like, this is how it is. And it's awesome when that is the experience for so many people.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, what inspired you to get on stage in the first place? Because you started competing in 2016
Yeah.
and you're a masters competitor. So, what got you into it?
One of my girlfriends actually had done her first competition, and I was just kind of watching it from afar. Like, what is this stuff all about? I didn't really know much about it. So I was like watching her do her show, and I just thought it was so cool. I came from sort of the typical, cardio bunny, go on the treadmill, didn't really know what I was doing at the gym type of um, um, person, and then watched her like weightlifting, and I thought it was really cool. So I hired the same coach that she did, and learned all about bodybuilding and weight training, and how you're not going to get huge if you lift weights. And then I just one day said, you know what, do you think I could ever compete? And my coach was like, let's do it. So so we did
Wow.
it. And then I was only meant to be like a bucket list item. I said, I just want to do it one time just to say that I did it. And then I just fell in love with it. My first show, one of the trainers in Vancouver, was the first show that I did. She hosts it every year. She actually just stopped, so that kind of sucks. But it was like one of my favorite shows I've ever done. I had such good memories. Everybody was so helpful and supportive. The volunteers were amazing. And yeah, I was expecting to be super nervous getting on stage. And again, backstage, I just started dancing to the music, and I was just having a blast. And people are like, aren't you nervous? Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I was like, not really, actually. I just
That's
had so much
awesome.
fun.
I love that you said that it was a bucket list thing too, because right, well, lately I've seen posts that are like competing isn't just a bucket list thing. Like don't just
Hmm.
do it as a bucket list thing. Like you have to be living the lifestyle already and you need to be blah 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 blah. And I'm like, to some degree I definitely agree with that. If you're living the lifestyle already, it's going to be way easier to commit to a prep and a show. Like if you already know like how it feels to diet, or you already know how it feels to like commit to a goal, then yeah, like that's going to help you. But just because you want to do it as a bucket list thing doesn't mean you're wrong for that. And look what it turned into for you.
Yep. And you don't know if you're going to like it until you try it. I've known lots of girls that wanted to try it. They tried it once. They're like, good Lord, this is not for me. And they've never
Yeah.
done it again. So that's fine too. But I knew my personality. I always just I'm super deep detail oriented. I give 100% to, everything I do. So even in work, I work really, really hard. So I knew that if I had a goal, was told sort of what to do, how to lift, when to lift, when to do cardio. I just tell me what to do. I will follow instructions, and off we go.
Yeah, it definitely helps if you are a person like that too. Like if you can manage a lot of moving parts in your life in addition to following a regimen, or if you like regimen, I think it definitely is beneficial.
Yeah. And I always felt like, even now, like I still feel like I don't belong here. Like people ask me, "Oh my gosh, how did you get to where you are?" I said, honestly, I just followed instructions. I let the experts tell me what to do, and I did it. And that's that. It's, you just got to work your butt off and do what they tell you to do. And I felt like I was an imposter. Like the first show I did, when I got my first place, I was like, I feel like I'm being punked. Like I don't
Mm.
belong here. These people are all amazing. These people are all like so beautiful, and they look so great, and they worked so hard. And who am I? I'm just like this girl that like doesn't really know what she's doing. And every time I got back on stage, I was like, I'm just happy to be here. Like I don't feel like I belong with all these amazing looking people, but if you're willing to have me, I'm happy to be here.
Wow. Have you changed that mindset, or do you
I'm
still feel that way?
still just in awe. People like congratulate me on the pro card. I'm just like, I just still can't believe it. Like I feel like I'm dreaming. I'm just happy to be here, honestly.
That's awesome. You wake up with like a pinch me moment every
Yeah.
day.
And I've got the little pro card, on my dresser in my living room. I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's mine.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I love how you literally still feel that way. Like you
Oh,
have won multiple shows, you've actually earned your pro card. You've been doing this for 4 years. Yes, I did the math right. Um and yet you still are like, I like this is great. Wonder how that's gonna feel when you get to a pro show.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's all just gonna like start over again, because it'll be just a completely different, level, and different people in a different city. So it's every time you go to a different show, it's just something different and something new. And I just find it so exciting. I love traveling around and seeing different cities. Even when I was in Pittsburgh, most of my team left the next morning as soon as the show was done. I was like, no, I'm in a new city. I want to explore.
Yes.
So I just like Ubered myself around and got some treats and checked out the sites. And yeah, it's so fun.
That's awesome. And so I want to take another opportunity to learn from you,
Mhm.
because you explained like the whole Canadian thing, which was awesome. And I appreciate you doing that. And now I feel so silly asking this. And I'm like, I want to find out the answer before I ask her because it's going to be so embarrassing. And I was like, this is silly. Like, there's a reason I do this podcast, and part of it's selfish so I can learn. Um,
There are no dumb questions.
yes, only dumb people.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I hope no one takes that the wrong way. Oh man.
I'm scared now. I'm not going to know the answer.
No, it's not. Well, maybe. I don't know. Rewind. Okay, so Masters has like different categories, right? Like there's like you can compete in open or you can compete in Masters, and then there's like Masters pro shows, and then there's like anyone pro show. So how does that all work?
Masters is 35 and over, and then Grandmasters is 45 and over. So for Masters, basically you're just competing against people that are 35 and up. And then in Open, it's anybody. So a lot of the Masters, well, sometimes Masters people will compete in the Open as well.
Is
But
that also inclusive of um like someone who's in their 20s?
uh, 20s would be like in the Open category.
Okay, so
It's
there's
like
not
all
like a
over.
Masters Open.
Nope. There's just
Okay.
Masters 35 and over.
So
So only people 35 and over.
if you earn your pro card in
Masters.
Masters
Yeah.
third, let's say in 35 and up,
Yeah.
did what happens if you then compete in the open class division as well? Would you also have an opportunity to earn it?
I've got like basically my pro card is universal, so it qualifies me for any pro show. So I don't have to just compete in Masters pro shows. I can if I want to, but I don't have to.
Is there anyone who only is allowed to compete in a Masters pro show?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, that's what I was really wondering about. I felt like that was confusing. I didn't even have the knowledge to ask the right question.
Yeah, no, pro card is a pro card. So once you've got a pro card, you're qualified to do whatever you want in pro shows.
Okay, and the only difference is some pro shows do have like a master's.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. I felt like I was like they wouldn't just give an IFBB pro card to everyone, then all of a sudden you get back there and they're like, no, you can't compete in this one. But
Mm.
that's good to know. Okay, thank you. So there was one other thing I wanted to ask you in regard to like your reverse dieting, post show, overall just improvement season. I know like one of the things you touched on in a video I believe recently was how a lot of us start calling ourselves fat or fluffy,
Mhm.
and this is not helpful for our overall body image, self-concept, acceptance. So what have you done to keep yourself focused on being realistic about how you look and transitioning out of stage leanness?
Oh, that's really hard to do because I even just like yesterday had a little joke with a friend of mine. I think he'd posted a picture of something called Fluffy or something that he saw in a grocery store. It's like, hey, that's me. Um, yeah, I was having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine who competes in figure. We were in the change room, I think it was last summer, and she's like, I hate bulking season. I feel so fat. And she's just ripped. So that
Mm-hmm.
kind of like made me think, like, okay, yeah, I do the same thing. And I say, oh my God, I feel so fat. And even last summer when I was getting ready for my show, I think I just had a cheat meal or I just had drank a lot of water or something, something really minor. And somebody said, oh my God, you look so amazing. And I just caught myself saying, oh, I feel so fluffy because I just blah, 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 whatever it was. I can't remember. And somebody looked at me and went, yo, yeah, you're really fat. And I realized, oh my God, I sound like an idiot. Like people must just be like saying like what a jerk she is. Like she's completely ripped and she's saying she's fat. Like, how does that make me feel? So it just kind of put me in perspective of when we're saying that out loud, it's probably making other people feel bad because we're definitely not fat, barring horrible reverse and maybe, somebody went off the rails and ate like garbage for, a really long time and is fluffy. But for the most part, we're in really great shape. We know, how to go to the gym. We've got the dedication of, lifting and cardio and eating fairly healthy. So even when we do put on some weight in the off season, we're still in pretty good shape. So I try and always keep that in perspective, make some jokes with competitor friends or whatever, but I try not to say it out loud, too many times because you can get, stuck in your head that, that negative connotation of, negative self-talk, and it can really mess with your head when you're not being truthful to yourself about how you actually really do look. You just think you look that way, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. It's not a it's not like a spitting image. It's your own personal image in your own
Totally.
head. So it's not by defining factors within society, maybe, but it's more so within yourself based on those
Yeah.
factors.
And
So then you apply it.
I was recommending comparing, oops, sorry. Oh, I was saying I was comparing, saying to people to compare like photos of years before they started competing
Yes.
compared to now, not what you look like on stage for the, hour that you're going to look like that out of life. Like that's not realistic and sustainable and long term. That's like a snapshot in time that you can't hold on to for very long. So don't compare what you look like now to what you look like on stage. Compare what you look like now to what you look like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. And like in your very
Yeah.
first gym selfie, or
Yeah.
not when you're all dolled up and tanned and everything's
Yeah.
perfect, that's a really, really great insight. Even like I'll look back on photos where I felt fluffy and I'm like, this is the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
Right.
when you look back on it, you're just like, I looked a little sick still. Like I still looked a little too lean. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. There's sometimes like sometimes just perspective. It sounds like that's the main takeaway here is like put things into perspective when you're feeling that way. I always like to ask like, is this truth? What is the evidence that this is true?
Yeah.
And where can I find this evidence? Because usually the only evidence we have is from our own insecurities or from comparing, and it's not actually the truth. So it's good to gain that perspective.
And we get the sunken face and the cheekbones and all that, and that's not super cute.
No, it's definitely not. My client the other day was like, oh my gosh, your face is a completely different shape when you're in prep versus like in your pregnancy, because I had posted like a throwback picture and I was like, oh, you saw that picture? She was like, yeah. I was like, it's just different. Like I've got a round face, like
Yeah.
probably 350 days of the year. And then like peak week is like
Yeah.
skeleton. But anyway, I would love if you could give your best advice for newbie competitors and then your best advice for competitors who are on their road to pro.
Newbie competitors, I would say just be prepared for having people that don't get it and don't take it personally. We've all got, different hobbies. We've all got different interests. Like everybody is so different in the world, and we've all got things that we don't understand. Like somebody else's interests maybe aren't my cup of tea, which is totally cool. That's kind of what makes us all interesting and unique. Like makes the world go around. We're all really different. So people are not going to get what you're doing. They're not going to understand it. They might say, some negative stuff, but just let it slide off your back. It's not a reflection of you. Just do what makes you happy. And if this makes you happy, then go for it. And then people on their road to pro, I would just stay humble. That's really the thing that's kept me going, is just being thankful for just being a part of this industry, and just enjoy all the people around that are supporting you, and just enjoy every moment of it, because it goes so quickly. That day just blows by. So just enjoy it. Don't get stressed out. Don't get in your head too much. Just once the work is all done and you're showing up for show day, just enjoy the day and make the best of it.
I really love that. Thank you for both of those pieces of advice, especially that first one hasn't actually ever been said on the show before. So I think that that's a really good one. And I love how you said not to take it personally. And I would love for people to be able to connect with you online as well, or maybe even work with you, especially if they're in Canada. So can you let everybody know where they can find or connect with you?
Best way is probably Instagram. So my Instagram handle is, so it's basically my initials, Jody Lynn Andrews, so JLA, so JAYELLE_A. And then I put IFBB Pro at the end of there, of course, because got to do that. So it's JLA, IFBB Pro. And then my real estate one is Jody Andrews Kelowna Real Estate on Facebook. If anybody needs a house, let me know.
Woo! That's awesome. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, I'm going to make sure all of that information is in the show notes page. As usual, that's celestial.fit/podcast. You can go to the category section and find Jody's name specifically, or you can always reach out and I'll send it to you directly. But thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. Jody, thank you for coming on. Are you going to listen to your own episode?
Oh gosh, I'll probably listen to 5 minutes and go, oh, I sound so weird, and turn it off. But thank you for having me. I'm so thankful.
Of course, you're so welcome. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening.